Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Guide London. Hello, Zdravstvuyte, меня зовут Fiona, and that's as much as I'm going to do bilingually this afternoon. But we are this afternoon going to be talking about Russian London. So in a moment, we're going to be joined by my friend and colleague Olga, who will be telling us all about the sort of historical visitors who've come from Russia to London over the years, some of the modern residents of London, and a host of connections that we have here in London that connect to all things Russian. And this is one of hopefully a series of these broadcasts that we're going to bring to you over the coming months, where we're going to look at London from the angles of various different nationalities, different nations and things, because you know by now we have about 600 or so members of the Association of Professional Tourist Guides here in London. We are Guide London, and we specialise in all sorts of different topics. But we also have a lot of our guides who specialise who are bilingual, trilingual, some of them multilingual. And so they are very happy to show you around London in whatever language you would like to be guided in. So more of that later on. For the moment, I'm going to introduce Olga to you. Here is Olga. Hello, good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon. Nice to meet you. My name is...
Lovely to see you again. So today you're going to take us through all sorts of lovely Russianness.
Yes.
That's right, isn't it? So, without further ado, well, there we go. Just finding the right thing, and I will leave you to it, and I will bring up your PowerPoint to off we.
Okay, thank you very much for coming to watch this live broadcast. My name is Olga Romano, and I'm the official guide in Russian, English, Spanish, Italian, and Portuguese. And by the way, I'm mother tongue Russian. I'm coming from the lovely city of St. Petersburg. So when I got asked to do a broadcast about Russian, I racked my memory and I thought, oh, it's quite an interesting thing because it's 2021. So what? 2021, we celebrate 450 years of Russia-Britain relations. And indeed, it all happened 450 years ago in 1571, when the first diplomatic relation was done. I'm going to cover it in a moment. So look at the screen and you will see four Russian-related sites in London. So left to right, it's an eagle, not bi-headed eagle, the coat of arms of Russia. Then you can see the memorial to Soviet citizens that died in the Second World War. And as you can recognize, to the left-hand side of this memorial, there is Imperial War Museum. This memorial was unveiled in 2004 to commemorate the Soviet victims and servicemen of the Second World War. Then you can see the memorial to Prince Vladimir, the man who baptized the key of Russia. I'm going to cover it a little bit later. More than 1,000 years ago. This memorial stands on Notting Hill Road in London. And the last is the memorial to the first man in space, Yuri Gagarin. In 2011, we celebrated 50 years from the first man in space, and this memorial stood on the Mall and witnessed the marriage of William and Kate. And later it was moved to Greenwich Observatory. So these are the Russian-related sites in London that I picked for you, but there are, of course, a lot more than that. So if we go to the next image, we will see the memorial to Vladimir, and to the right-hand side of Vladimir and to the left-hand side of Vladimir, we can see Saint Olga. My name is Olga Romano, so this is my patron saint. She was the great princess of Russia more than 1,000 years ago, and she attempted to baptize the then pagan country. And if we look to the right-hand side, just after the memorial, we will see Saint Vladimir. So Saint Vladimir was the ruler of Kiev Rus, and he was the grandson of Saint Olga, and he succeeded in 988 to bring Christianity. So in 1988, exactly 1,000 years after this event, this memorial that you can see in the middle was put up in Notting Hill in London. So going a little bit further, we're approaching this memorial in Notting Hill, and you can see the photograph of a man who made it. This is the sculptor Leo Moll. Leo Moll uh, was a Ukrainian sculptor, and his life was quite amazing. He was born in 1915, and he passed away in 2003. In 1988, he made the memorial of Saint Vladimir, the man who brought Christianity to Kiev Rus. His real name is Leonid Molodjanin, and during the Second World War, he was abducted, brought into concentration camp, and later, when the concentration camp was liberated, he remained in Germany, didn't return to the Soviet Union, and later he went to Canada. And after that, he worked under the name of Leo Moll. So this is Saint Vladimir, 1988. So going a bit further, we come into the relations of Russia and England 450 years ago. Well, the man on the right-hand side is the English king, Edward VI, who was the son of the famous king, Henry VIII. And during his reign, the ruler of Russia was Ivan the Terrible, also known as Ivan the Fourth, on the left-hand side. So what happened then? If we go to the next picture, we will see an Englishman called Richard Chancellor, who decided to go to find the shortest route to China and Asia. And back then, 450 years ago, it was quite dangerous to go via south, because south was dominated by Spain and Portugal, other great sea powers. So he decided to go north. He arrived to what we now call the modern city of Severodvinsk. And in Dvinsk Bay, it was very cold and there was a big storm. So 3 of his 4 vessels perished, and the 4th vessel was rescued by Pomori. That's the people of northern Russia. So Pomori brought the team of Richard Chancellor straight to Ivan the Terrible of Russia. And Ivan the Terrible of Russia thought, "Ooh, that looks interesting. We can be good allies. We can work together." And this is how the Muscovy Company was founded. So if we look at the next one, we will see again Edward VI, just to remind you that that was 1551, the last years of Edward VI. And on this slide, we see a man who was the head of the Muscovy Company. His name was Hugh Willoughby, and he worked for the English king, Captain Hugh Willoughby. And on the right-hand side, I put the image of Four Seasons hotels, Tower Hill, the ex-Marine Exchange. So if you take a little stroll around that building when you come to London, you will come to this sign. And this is the name of the street that was named after the first Russian-English company. It was called the Muscovy Company, and it started in 1551 and it finished in 1698, but didn't finish completely, but may I say flourished in the more prosperous and good relationship between England and Russia, which was patronaged by Peter the Great, the founder of my city of St. Petersburg. So if we look at the next one, we will see an interesting painting. So the man seated in the middle wearing yellow shirt. This is Ivan the Fourth, Ivan the Terrible of Russia. And next to him, you can see standing, leaning a little bit, the English ambassador, Jerome Horsey. So that happened when on the English throne was Queen Elizabeth I, also known as, here she is, the Virgin Queen. So the Virgin Queen was famous because she never got married. Many people asked her, proposed to her in marriage, and she said, no, I'm sorry, I'm married to England. So Ivan the Terrible was the one who also asked the Queen to marry him. The Queen said, I'm sorry, I'm married to England. And the man who's in the middle, this is the English ambassador in Moscow, after the refusal of the Queen was executed. So hopefully the relationship of Elizabeth of Russia and England didn't suffer, but unfortunately the ambassador was executed. Well, after all, it's even the terrible. Okay, so if we go a bit further, we can see the palaces no longer existing, where Queen Elizabeth I used to receive Russian ambassadors. That was back in the 16th century in her reign. So the one on the left is Richmond Palace, the one on the right is Greenwich Palace. They're both on the River Thames, and Russians were fascinated by this proximity of the river. They were received in the Ogorod. Ogorod in Russian means the vegetable garden. This is what the Russian guests called Queen Elizabeth I Rose Garden. Back then, rose gardens were not very popular in Russia, but it's more like vegetable gardens. So further we go, and here we go, the great moment. The man on the left is Peter the Great. I said the great moment because he founded my home city of St. Petersburg. I was born there and raised and went to the university. And if you take a look at the smaller circle in the middle, this is St. Peter and Paul's fortress. St. Peter's and St. Paul's fortress was the first building built in St. Petersburg by Peter the Great. This is where my city started. And the man on the right wearing red tunic, this is one of the loyalist friends of Peter the Great. His name was Demidov. Nikita Demidov helped Peter the Great to to build St. Petersburg. And for the building of St. Petersburg, his steel was used. So looking a little bit here, here is one of the Demidov family. And if you look in the middle, this is the seal of Demidov Company, which received a lot of protection from Peter the Great. Their steel was used for the construction of the monument to the Great Fire of London. So you can see it on the right-hand side, built with Russian Demidov steel. Going further, we can see a more interesting story. So in the middle, King and Queen, I'm sure many of them will recognize them. This is William of Orange and Queen Mary. So William and Mary invited Peter the Great for a visit to England because Peter the Great was planning to change Russia to make it more European country. But Peter the Great refused. However, he came to England incognito, and his name was given to the English king as Uradnik Peter Mikhailov, like a workman, Peter Mikhailov, that was the last name. So Peter visited England and he stood in Deptford. If you take a look to your left-hand side, you will see the man wearing the white and black clothes. So this is John Evelyn. So Peter the Great rented this house from John Evelyn. He was organizing parties, he was drinking, he was being merry. And John Evelyn was quite upset with Uradnik Peter Mikhailov. Of course, everyone knew he was the Tsar of Russia. So John Evelyn came to William of Orange and said, "Your Majesty, this Uradnik is practically damaging my house." But William of Orange said, "If I need to pay anything for that, I will pay." And he did pay for a new house for John Evelyn. This is what the legend says, however. And on the right-hand side, the French, not the French, the Scottish helper of William of Orange, Marquis of Carmarthen. He was the guide of Peter the Great during the visit to England, incognito. So going further, we will see the place where Peter used to live in Deptford. This is the memorial to Peter the Great here. And if we look to the next part of the presentation, this is the man who built it, Michael Shimakin, the Russian sculptor. He was born in 1943, and he built many memorials in my hometown of St. Petersburg in Russia. So going further, we will see another Russian visitor, and we are talking this time about the Napoleonic Wars. This is the Russian Tsar, Alexander I. Alexander I was a great friend of the English after the defeat of Napoleon. He came on a state visit to England, and he landed at Dover Castle in the middle. A legend has it he was so well respected by the English that he was carried all the way up the cliff to Dover Castle. He slept one night at Dover Castle, then he decided to go to London to meet the English king. The English king, George, of course, offered him to stay in St. James's Palace, but he refused for a simple reason. And the reason is on the right-hand side of Dover Castle, the water closets. St. James's Castle back then didn't have the flashing water closets, so he chose a hotel in Piccadilly. So going further, we will see a man who knew Alexander I. This is not a Russian man this time, but an Englishman, but a great lover of Russia, called Edward Orme. If you walk in Bayswater in London, you will see a lot of places named after Russian cities. Just take a look. Moscow Road, where the Greek Orthodox Church stands, not Russian, the Greek. And on the right-hand side, you can see St. Petersburg Place. So Orme made a lot of money making commerce with Russia. He met the Russian Tsar Alexander I. He was fascinated by him, and he decided to call the land he owned in London with the names of Russian cities. So going further, we see one of the most famous ambassadors of Russia in England. His name was Simeon Romanovich Warrensoft, the Count Warrensoft, 1744-1832. And next to him, his daughter, Ekaterina, and next to Ekaterina, we can see Sidney Herbert. Well, the story is quite interesting. Simeon Romanovich Warrensoft was the great benefactor. He helped the London poor. He helped the Russian and England relationship. Once he finished his diplomatic career, he didn't forgive London. He left a lot of money to the London poor, and his daughter got married to Lord Pembroke. And the photograph of a man, black and white photograph, is Sidney Herbert, who became quite an important figure during the Crimean War with England and Russia. He was trying to make peace. And if you take a look on the right-hand side, this is the memorial to the Crimean War. I apologize, the photograph is very small. So in the middle is the memorial itself. On the left-hand side is Florence Nightingale. And on the right-hand side, the man you can see here in black and white, this is Sidney Herbert. So going further, this is the old Russian embassy. It's not there anymore, not far from Harrods, 30 to 31 Chesham Place. This is where Count Warrensoft would have been. And if you look further, then you will see the Church of St. Mary Le Bone, where Count Warrensoft, in spite of being Russian Orthodox, buried, and some houses that he built in St. John's Wood that used to be poor houses. So further going, this lady everyone will recognize. This is Queen Victoria. Queen Victoria was the Queen of England for quite a considerable amount of years. Her middle name was Alexandrina because her godfather was Alexander I of Russia, and this is her mom holding her. So going further, we see Nicholas I. Nicholas I of Russia, also nicknamed the Tsar Architect and the Gendarme of Russia, of Europe. Why Gendarme of Europe? Um, because he fought the rebellion of Decabrists, and you can see this rebellion there on the screen. But Tsar Architect because he visited the Houses of Parliament. In 1851, the Houses of Parliament were completed, and the Tsar, Nicholas I, make a stroll around the Houses of Parliament. And guess who his guide was? Just take a look. This is Charles Barry and Augustus Pugin. He was so fascinated. Charles Barry was so fascinated by the knowledge of the Tsar that he praised his great architectural knowledge and gave him all the drawings for the Palace of Westminster. So if you're wondering where the drawings of the Palace of Westminster are, they are in St. Petersburg. So it's not just these people, not just czars. We're going to talk about modern people as well in a moment, and some famous people of the past. This is Alexander Herzen. Alexander Herzen, the movement of liberation of Russia. He lived in Orset House. You can see it on the picture, very near Little Venice. He was in exile in London, planning to come back to Russia. Next one is Peter Kropotkin, the father of Russian anarchism. He was believing in revolution, but the revolution of anarchy. He stayed in London and he died in 1921. Next one is Vladimir Lenin, the founder of the communist state of the Soviet Union. He visited London before he became famous in 1905 and 1903 for the Congress of the Bolshevik Party, and he stayed in Clerkenwell, 16 Percy Circus. Next one is Kerensky, the man who was for the Russian Republic after the February Revolution. And I quite recently discovered that in spite of Kerensky died in the United States of America, where he lived, he is buried not far from where I live, in St. Mary's Church in Wimbledon. So next one is not a Russian man, but a gentleman who loves very much Russia, the great prince, the Prince Michael of Kent. He speaks good Russian, and he is the patron of Humanitarian University of St. Petersburg and London School of Business. His residence is Kensington Palace. So next one, I'm going to give you some advice. If you love Russia and all Russian, where should you visit? And my first choice would be the National Gallery. Why National Gallery? Because as soon as the gallery reopens, you enter there, you arrive to the main building, which you can see on the screen. Don't look on the paintings, but look under your feet. And under your feet, you can see the mosaics who were made by another man from St. Petersburg called Boris Andreev. He did the mosaics of National Gallery before the Second World War, and he did the mosaics also in the 50s after the Second World War. So next thing I suggest that you might do is walk, but not on Oxford Street. Go to King's Road. On King's Road, you will find the first photograph on the left, the house where Princess Serafine Astafyeva was living. She used to dance for Diaghilev Saison Russe, and she established herself in London, and she founded a good school of ballet. In the middle, you can see a Russian restaurant not far from Harrods called Mary Vanna. So if you are into borscht or kotlety or vinaigrette, then please visit that restaurant. And of course, not to forget, blini. And all Russian people love music. And this is the Royal Opera House where Anna Netrebko sang and many, many other Russian celebrities. So keep an eye on their program once they reopen. I'm sure you will see um, you will see a Russian person performing there. Well, what else? Chelsea Football Stadium, also worth a visit. And there is a beautiful museum which is dedicated to the team and also dedicated to the history of the stadium. So next thing I recommend you, quite unusual, the Russian bathhouse. Go to Victoria Station, not far from the Victoria Station. If you want to see luxury and traditional Russian ritual, may I say so, of parenia, also introduced as sauna, but it's not quite sauna. You might visit this place as well. You will be surprised. So we are coming to the modern things, and I'm going to tell you that one of the biggest Russian hubs in London is, of course, Russian churches, Russian Orthodox, not to be confused with Greek Orthodox. So this is the church located not far from Harrods. It's the church of the Dormition of Our Lady and All Saints, where I personally got married in 2003. It is in Italian Basilica, but from 1920 there is a church, Russian Orthodox there. Services last 3 hours, but don't be surprised, don't be scared. You can leave at any time, not to worry. Also, you will see the next picture. On the next picture, one of the greatest Russian men of modern ages to live in London, the Bishop Anthony of Suraj. I'm not going to tell you a lot about him. I just tell you that this man, who was born in 1914 and passed away in 2003, he lived in France, trained as a doctor. His family emigrated after the Russian Revolution of 1917 to France, but after the war, he felt the vocation to become a priest, and he became a monk, and he was holding the spiritual life of Russia until his death in 2003. So if you look at the next slide, you will see the Brompton Cemetery, and on the left is the grave of Father Anthony of Suraj. So next picture we're going to see is the Russian church outside Russia after the Second World War. Two churches, not after the Second World War, after the revolution, two churches divided, the Orthodox Russians abroad and the Orthodox Russians of Moscow Patriarchate. So the first church I showed you was of the Moscow Patriarchate, and this one you can see if you're coming to London from Heathrow Airport. It was built quite recently in 2003, and it is dedicated to the Holy Royal Martyrs, the family of the Russian executed Tsar Nicholas II. So that church was visited in 2017 by Patriarch Kirill, which laid an end of the opposition of two Russian Orthodox churches. So next one, some interesting facts about Russians in London. So we have 300,000 Russians in London. 100 of them are mega millionaires. 39,000 Russians living in London were born in Russia, like myself. We have 5 registered Russian language schools. My children go to one of them. 4 Russian language newspapers. And in 2007, look at the picture. This house, not far from the British Museum, was organized. This is Pushkin House, the cultural center of all Russians in London. So we go a bit further, just a couple of slides, and some modern Russians living in London. Evgeny Chichvarkin, he used to run the mobile company called Euroset in Russia, fell out with the government. He emigrated to Russia to England in 2007, and he set up a wine shop called Hedonism Wine in Mayfair. Highly recommended. Next one is Michael Zellman. Well, Michael Zellman called himself American. However, he was born and bred in Russia, and he is the owner of an amazing chain of restaurants called Burger and Lobster. Well, once the restaurants reopen, if you're looking for something unusual, if you're looking for something brilliant and strange as well, you may visit one of his restaurants. So there are quite a few of them in London. You can only have their burger or lobster, but done in two extremely different ways. Katie Melua, we are talking about Russian Brits. Well, some of you might say, hang on a moment, isn't she Georgian by birth? Well, Katie Melua, the famous British singer who won the hit parade of 2004 with her song The Call. She was born in Georgia when it was still Soviet Union in 1984. Her family went to work to Belfast, and that was where she started her beautiful singing. And she was the singer who performed 303 meters under the sea level, as well as for our current Queen Elizabeth II Jubilee concert in 2013, summer 2013. So we are going to finish our broadcast, but please don't leave us yet, because I have forgotten to tell you something very important. There are 40 plus Russian speaking Blue Badge tourist guides at this website. Just make a little note, guidelondon.org.uk. So if you fancy a tour in Russian, or if you want Russian connection in English, please don't hesitate to contact us. And shall I say something in Russian? Come on, I will say it. До встречи в Лондоне. Мы ждем вас. Пока.
Well, I have to say, I mean, I studied Russian at GCSE, and I didn't follow that bit at the end there. But the rest of it I followed very much, and beautiful. Thank you so much, Olga. What a lovely variety of different connections. I know where I'm going to go when we're allowed. I'm going to go to the Russian baths, because I didn't realize they were there, and I do like a good sauna type. So they look beautiful. So yeah,
Fiona.
Okay. I'll get my booking in now. I don't mind. That's good. So lots of comments just coming in saying thank you so much, and how much people have enjoyed it. If you do have questions for Olga, then do pop them in the chat now, and we can come back to you in a moment. Welcome people. I was going to say good morning to people in Winchester, in Virginia. Kathy's from Canada. I know we have someone from Florida watching as well. Is there anyone out there who's in Russia at the moment? Let us know as well while you're doing that. And yes, as Olga said, if you look on the APTG site, then you can see, you can find, that's the easiest way probably to find Olga. You could just type Olga up into the search box up here, and she would ping up for you. Likewise, you can find me through there. But if you click on Guide Match at the top here, then you will get some information, and then a form that you can fill in. And one of the boxes that you can do, it's off the top of my page, let me just do that. There we go, that's better. Is if you look at the top right-hand corner, you can see the language box, and then a drop-down list. Is that showing up with you? I can't see. It's working on my screen, but maybe it's not coming through on that one. Anyway, there is, if you have a look on there, you can see the range of languages that we've got guides, members of the APTG, who would be delighted to show you round. And you said, is it 40 or so Russian-speaking guides, Olga?
Over 40, I think.
Over 40, yeah.
Maybe more now. I haven't counted.
Okay, and presumably it's a mixture of, like yourselves, who are mother tongue, and then other people, maybe English people who.
Oh yes, there are some very good non-mother tongue and also non-English, well, English speaking but non-guiding in English, Russian speaking blue badge guides. Indeed,
and I was going to say again that my GCSE Russian would get me nowhere near being able to guide in Russian, and if someone is guiding in a language that isn't their mother tongue, then they will have done various exams and things to do that as well. So if you book a guide, a language, different guide in different language through the APTG, then you know you're going to get someone who really is very fluent. So it's a good way to go.
In my Spanish Italian, I passed the exam.
There you go. So you have 4 different language possibilities.
I have 5. Spanish, Italian, English, and Portuguese, and Russian, of course.
There we go. I'm always so kind of humbled whenever, because I'm not great with languages, and it's so impressive when you can do so many. I was just going to share a comment from Penny here, who's discovered that her grandfather was a Russian citizen, so she'll be coming back and enjoying the Russian connections in London when she's back in London next. Actually, it was Penny as well who says, why was the ambassador executed?
Oh, why the ambassador? Even the terrible was quite a terrible king.
Hence the name, I guess.
If he didn't have his way, that was a common practice, because the ambassador didn't manage to get the Elizabeth I's agreement. Well, anyway, it's a legend. Don't take it as a pure fact. It's a legend that goes so.
Yeah, as long as you haven't discovered the ambassador was your grandfather, that would be bad, and would be very great grandfather.
450 years ago.
Indeed, way back in the family tree, that would be. So, well, Olga, that was fabulous. So much. Thank you so much for that. And everyone else, thank you for joining us once again. And we will be back next week with more exciting London stories to share with you. So thank you very much, everyone, and have the rest of a good day.